I'll be sharing with you some of the exciting opportunities that Amazon Singapore offers sellers like yourself, and how you can leverage and scale your e-commerce business with these. Yeah. So I think maybe just to quickly recap for those that weren't here earlier, we have invited Osome to speak with us today to share more about navigating GST and Tax, as well as Jess from Amazon Global Selling, who will share more about the selling journey on Amazon US. All right, so maybe we can just straight away dive right in. Yeah, so Singapore is a cosmopolitan city and a global hub when it comes to finance, tech, logistics, and transport. And despite its size, Singapore has also one of the highest GDP per capita and e-commerce penetration rates in the world. And as we see here in the charts, we see that Singapore's GDP per capita is higher than Switzerland, the UAE, and also Qatar. And its e-commerce penetration is also at 80%, which is higher than the US and also the European average. So what Singapore lacks in landmass, it makes up for in ambition, ease of doing business, purchasing power, and also the connectivity to Asia and Southeast Asian nations. And Singapore will become your most connected hub in Southeast Asia, which also means faster setup, more seamless processes, and also smooth importation for sellers. And today, Singapore is an economic powerhouse with a really impressive resume. So the numbers speak for themselves when it comes to the ease of doing business and logistics. For one, Singapore is ranked number 2 worldwide by the World Bank in 2020 for its ease of doing business. And it also came in first in terms of efficient customs clearance, and the first in Asia for IP protection in 2019. So Singapore is also an open economy for trade, and we have 26 FTA, including the US SG FTA, which makes the import of most goods to Singapore basically tariff-free. So with Southeast Asia as its backdrop, Singapore is connected to 3 billion Southeast Asian consumers within just a 6-hour flight radius. And Singapore is your gateway to accessing the Southeast Asian economy, which is also expected to become the 4th largest economy in the world by 2030. Yeah, so e-commerce in Singapore is expected to grow really strongly in the next 5 years, and we definitely want to catch the early trend. So firstly, revenue of the Singapore e-commerce industry is expected to exceed 4.6 billion US dollars by 2025. And secondly, the pandemic has also spurred online spending in Singapore. And I think this is something that we can all attest to ourselves as well. And in the first half of 2020, the average basket size across Southeast Asia has increased by 23%. And Singapore also shows one of the biggest improvements with a growth of 51%. So Singapore online shoppers have one of the highest online spending in the region at $2,206 per year, which presents a huge opportunity for sellers. And lastly, Singapore's high potential for cross-border e-commerce. So according to a cross-border e-commerce report by Alpha Beta, by 2026, more than half of all the online orders in Singapore will be expected to come from cross-border. And the potential for micro SMEs to seize this potential and opportunity is huge. So with e-commerce export revenues from Singapore sellers potentially reaching 3.5 billion Singapore dollars by just 2026. Yeah, so next, Singapore, being a very developed country, we have very highly sophisticated e-commerce customers. So these are some of the key trends that we see in Singapore online shoppers. Firstly, mobile commerce is very important in Singapore, and half of our checkouts are actually done on mobile over desktop. And secondly, with a very high social media consumption, mainly on Facebook and Instagram, and also more recently, Facebook Messenger even. Live streaming also and the use of influencers are also increasingly on the rise. So shoppers are also more motivated by cheap and fast shipping, clear expectations on delivery dates, and also coupled with attractive deals and promotions, as well as the range and quality. So overall, Singapore consumers are used to, and they also love discovering new overseas brands and products. And in fact, 73% have shopped from overseas sellers compared to US, where only 34% have bought imported online goods. So top cross-border online shopping origins also include China, United States, as well as South Korea. So this shows that Singapore shoppers seek higher quality goods and selections that are not found locally. So why should you choose Amazon as your e-commerce partner? Firstly, Amazon is a globally trusted brand with its iconic Amazon boxes and smile icon, which I'm sure many of us here have seen them before. And Amazon is also ranked the Fortune second most admired company in the world back in just 2021. And customers primarily want to buy authentic goods, be assured of the good customer service, and also get fast delivery. So with 175 fulfillment centers worldwide and 200 countries that we ship our products to, the logistics infrastructure provided by Amazon is on a global scale. So Amazon Singapore brings all these innovative global features to Singapore customers and sellers. So while there are many that I love to share with you, maybe for today, I will just highlight 2 key tools and features that are available on Amazon Singapore that makes buying and selling a delightful experience. So we know that Singapore customers want fast delivery, trustworthiness, good customer service, and good deals when they are shopping online. So Amazon Prime and Fulfillment by Amazon, which is commonly known as FBA, can help you deliver an excellent e-commerce customer experience while leveraging a well-loved brand. So in Singapore, Amazon Prime actually offers a free 1-day delivery on Prime eligible items. What this means is that your products can reach your customers faster. And with FBA, Amazon also picks, packs, and ships the items for you, removing a lot of logistics hassle. Amazon Prime is also Singapore's third most recommended brand, just behind some other well-loved names such as Singapore Airlines. Seller partners can tap on the Prime base and gain the coveted Prime badge with FBA as well. So with FBA, another advantage is less worries when it comes to handling your customer servicing, as Amazon will take care of the queries, refunds, and also returns on your behalf. So with Prime and FBA, you can also participate in Prime Day and Amazon shopping events all year round to satisfy Singapore customers' love for good deals and discounts. So to launch in Singapore seamlessly, Amazon Singapore has a wide range of tools to help you transition at each stage of the process. So if you're finding service providers to help with logistics and customs, the Singapore Service Provider Network does provide you a list of trusted providers. And for brand owners, be assured that your trademark is protected with the Amazon IP Accelerator, where we have trusted IP law firms that can guide you through the process. We also now accept brand enrollment with a pending trademark, which means that brand owners get early access to selling features and brand protection benefits. So for our out-of-country sellers, we also have the Build International Listings and Localization tool that helps you easily replicate your listings and offers from one Amazon store to the Singapore store. So this helps you save time and effort by managing the deals from one central US store. And to improve your reach to customers, you can also tap on many advertising tools that are available, such as sponsored listings, coupons, deals, and more. And for customer fulfillment and service, like I mentioned earlier, we have FBA and Prime membership in Singapore, which allows your customers to enjoy 1-day delivery without worrying about last mile fulfillment. So what's unique about Singapore is that we have Western and Asian confluences, and Singapore celebrates many public holidays and shopping events. Some of the common ones that we share with US would be Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and also Christmas. And local holidays and shopping events would include Chinese New Year, National Day, and also even Deepavali. So this means that you can leverage different peak seasons in different countries to increase your revenue potential. So some of the examples of the key shopping events that we have in Singapore, here we have Valentine's Day. And then we also have Prime Day, where we actually spend quite a bit into driving external traffic back to Amazon, and also National Day and Christmas. So if you need another reason to why you should sell on Amazon Singapore, let me share with you some of the ongoing promotions that we have for Amazon Singapore sellers. So firstly, the subscription fee on Amazon Singapore is actually waived to the end of next year, so you can start your Amazon e-commerce journey on Amazon.sg first. Next, we also have recently launched a new FBA selection program, which means free storage and also free removals for professional selling accounts on up to 100 new to FBA parent ASINs. And thirdly, we have a no fees for deals and voucher for all deal types via FBA. So for example, deal of the day, lightning deal, best deal, and also prime exclusive deals. And finally, we have a free $65 in ad credits for sponsored ads. So the full terms and conditions for all these promotions can also be found on our Amazon Singapore website if any of the sellers here are keen to find out more. So here we have some of the key milestones that we celebrated over just the past 5 years. And Amazon Singapore is growing with our customers, and our journey in Singapore has really only just begun. So now that you understand how to engage with Singapore shoppers, what is the Singapore trend like, maybe we will go into what you can sell in Singapore and also what are some of the trending products right now. So on Amazon Singapore, we have many categories that you can list your products in, and this slide actually gives you an overview of how Amazon categorizes our products and available categories that you have to sell. So the main categories are actually consumer electronics, where top performing categories include electronics, personal computer, and wireless products. And then we have the consumables, where we see high performance in health and personal care, beauty products, as well as baby products. And other hardlines that we have include the home, kitchen, sports, and toys. And media, we have books as well. And for softline, we have jewelry and watches available. And more recently, we have our apparel and shoes category that has finally launched on Amazon Singapore. So looking at the bigger picture, we also identified 3 key trends that have shaped Singapore customers in 2021. So firstly is the smart nation, smart living. So with work from home being predominant in Singapore, or right now the more hybrid approach, popular products include the Amazon Echo, robot vacuum cleaners, smart gardens to liven up your homes, and of course, electronic devices to facilitate your home offices, such as your laptops, laptop stands, and even phone accessories. And secondly, the second trend we see is wellness and self-care, which is a huge trending theme. So popular products would include like massage equipment, supplements, and also fitness devices. And now with more time on hand at home, entertainment at home is also a core theme that we are observing. Popular products would include Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, Lego, video games, and also books. So these are some of the popular items within each of these categories that you can reference in your research for your e-commerce store, especially when you're starting out and trying to figure out, what should you start selling on Amazon. Yeah. And now that we've covered an introduction to Amazon Singapore, the tips to engage Singapore shoppers, and also, what are some key trending products, you may check out more resources to start selling on Amazon Singapore via the QR codes on screen. So we do provide you a lot of guides like selection guidance, registration guides, everything that to help you really kickstart your selling journey. And also do follow us on our Facebook page at Sell on Amazon SG to stay up to date with upcoming events and meetups. And if you have any questions, you can also fire them through our FB Messenger. So I'll wrap it up for Amazon Singapore today, and I'll pass the time on to Imran from Osome to share a bit more about GST and Tax.
All right. Hi, everyone. Glad you can join us today. Introduction. My name is Imran, and I'm from the tax team here at Osome. And I have my covering the... Okay, here are the agenda basics. Preparing tax computation, overview of GST and GST in a nutshell, and then we will end off with a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So now let's go through the basis period and the year of assessment. In tax terms, the YA is the year of assessment and the basis period is within the 12 months. So for example, if your basis period is in 2020, the YA will be 2021. So to assess the amount of tax, IRAS will look at your income and expenses during the financial year. So let's go through some examples. So if your financial year end is 31st March 2020, your basis period will be 1st April 2019 to 31st March 2020, and your year of assessment will be 2021. So in Singapore, the corporate tax rate is a flat 17%. Okay, now let's talk about the residency of the company. So a company can either be a tax resident or a non-tax resident. In Singapore, the tax residency of a company is determined by the control and management, and the residency status may change from year to year. So examples of scenarios where the control and management is not considered to be exercised in Singapore. There are no board of director meetings held in Singapore. The local director is a nominee director. No strategic decisions were made by a local director in Singapore, and there are no key employees based here in Singapore. Now let's talk about the impact of the tax residency on foreign income. So residents and non-resident companies are taxed in the same manner, but just that resident companies can enjoy certain benefits. Some of the benefits are the advantages of DTAs, which is avoidance of double taxation agreements, tax exemption on foreign source income, and the tax exemption on new startup companies. So let's now talk about the COR. The COR is a certificate of residence. So Singapore tax residents that derive income from other countries may apply for a COR. This COR must be given to IRAS to enjoy the benefits from the DTAs that Singapore has concluded with other countries. The COR can be applied through the MyTax portal. Now let's talk about the common tax reliefs for companies. So first, there is a startup tax exemption for new startup companies. Next will be the partial tax exemption. And lastly will be the deduction of expenses incurred before commencement of business. So first, let's start with the startup tax exemption. So this exemption is open to all companies except those with principal activity of investment holding, property development for sale, for investment, or both. Eligible companies must satisfy all 3 conditions to qualify for this startup tax exemption. First, the company must be incorporated in Singapore. It must be a tax resident of Singapore. And lastly, not more than 20 shareholders and at least 10% being held by an individual shareholder. So now let's go through in detail the startup tax exemption. So for the startup tax exemption, first 100,000 will be exempted at 75%. The next 100,000 will be exempted at 50%. So the total exemption is 125,000. Next will be the partial tax exemption. All companies will be able to qualify for the partial tax exemption. Those companies that enjoy the startup tax exemption will be transferred to the partial tax exemption after the third year. So here is the breakdown for the partial tax exemption. So the first 10,000 will be exempted at 75%. The next 190,000 will be exempted at 50%. So the total exemption will be 102,500. Next will be deduction of expenses incurred before commencement of business. So all revenue expenses incurred after you commence are tax deductible. But IRAS has given this scheme for all revenue expenses that were incurred 1 year before you start your business. Okay, for the next agenda, filing of income. So companies are required to submit 2 income tax returns. First will be the estimated charge. So all companies are required to file ECI with the company's first financial year. So some companies may not need to following not more than financial year, and the ECI must be nil. What we meant by ECI nil is that the company is making huge losses or the chargeable income is nil. Okay, next will be the annual tax returns. There are 3 types of annual tax returns. First will be the Form CS, next will be the dormant tax filing, and the waiver to submit tax returns. All of these must be submitted to IRAS by 30th November every year. Okay. Late filing and non-filing of income tax returns. Companies may face enforcement actions from IRAS for late filing or non-filing of their corporate tax returns. IRAS may take the following actions if the company fail to file their corporate tax returns on time. First, IRAS may issue an estimated notice of assessment, and the company must pay the estimated tax within 1 month. IRAS may offer to compound the offence with a composition amount not exceeding $1,000. IRAS may also issue a notice to the director to submit the required information to IRAS. And lastly, IRAS may summon the company or the person responsible for running of the company to court. Now let's look at the timeline for the corporate returns. So for example, company ABC Private Limited, incorp date is 10 January 2020. So in this case, the first financial year end will be 31st December 2020. So the due date for the ECI filing will be 31st March 2021, which is within 3 months of the company's financial year end. And the annual tax filing will be 30th November the following year. Let's go to the next section, preparing of tax computations. So what is a tax computation? A tax computation is basically a statement showing all the tax adjustments, accounting profit, and it shows how we arrive at the chargeable income. This includes non-tax deductible expenses, non-taxable receipts, further deductions, and capital allowances. So why do we need to make tax adjustments? Your company's chargeable income may be different from the net profit or loss shown in the financial statements. This is because some of the company expenses may not be tax deductible, and some of your income may not be taxable, or it may be taxed separately as a non-trade source income. Also, some companies may wish to claim capital allowances on their fixed assets or claim unutilized losses, capital allowances, or donations brought forward from previous years of assessment. Now let's go through some types of tax adjustments. Income when it's not to separately as non-trade income, add direct expenses relating to investment income, add back on renovation or refurb. Submitting without tax adjustments. Companies are still required to submit a tax. Do not need to make any adjustments to your profit and loss. And this is for the case for Form C. Here are some examples. All expenses reflected in your statements are incurred as tax deductible expenses. All the income reflected in your statements are taxable. The company is not claiming any capital allowances or fixed, and there are no unrealized losses, capital allowances or donations brought forward from previous YAs. Here are returns on time, So let's go through some mistakes to avoid when filing. The company must file their income tax returns on time, so they need to take note of the deadlines for ECI and the annual tax return. Next will be claiming of private and non-deductible expenses. What we meant by these are S-plate vehicles expenses, expenses not incurred in relation to your trade. Next will be overstating company expenses. Companies should declare expenses based on their financial statements. Next will be under declaring revenue figures. Same as the above, a company should declare their revenue based on the financial statements. Next will be applying the wrong tax exemptions. So if the company does not qualify for the startup tax exemption, the company should instead apply for the partial tax exemption. And lastly, claiming of capital allowances that do not belong to your company. Okay, now I'll pass my time to my colleague Glenn, who will continue on the GST.
Hi everyone. So thanks Imran for that introduction. So I'm Glenn. I'm an accountant over here at Osome, and I'm very happy today to be able to share with you more on the goods and service tax in Singapore, and hopefully a value add to your journey as an entrepreneur. So currently in Singapore, the GST rate is at 7%, but during the budget 2022, the government actually stated that there will be a staggered increase over the next 2 years. So from 1st January 2023, it will be increased to 8%, and then a further 1% to 9% from 1st January 2024. So this begs the question, who has to register for GST in Singapore? So it's mandatory for companies under two schemes. So this will be retrospective view and the prospective view. So first, for the retrospective view, companies with taxable supplies of more than Singapore dollars 1 million at the end of the calendar year will have to register for GST. This calendar year is referring to the period from January to December. And I'll explain a bit more later on what taxable supplies are. In the prospective view, we are looking at companies that forecast with reasonable certainty that they will exceed the 1 million threshold over the next 12 months. So at any point in time, you expect to exceed this 1 million threshold, you will have to register yourself for GST. So there's actually 4 types of GST in Singapore, and they are split into 2 categories, taxable supplies and non-taxable supplies. So as mentioned in the previous slide, the threshold for mandatory registration comes in when taxable supplies cross the 1 million mark. So under taxable supplies, there are 2 types. There are your standard rated supplies and your zero rated supplies. So standard rated supplies are the ones which we are all very familiar with. If we go into a GST establishment in Singapore, we always get charged that additional 7%. We also have zero rated supplies, which as the name suggests, 0% GST is charged to the customers. So examples of this will be when you export goods. So let's say I'm selling my goods from Singapore to a customer in China. So the goods will move from Singapore to China, and I'll be able to charge 0% GST to my overseas customer. And there are other services as well, for example, etiquettes, which will also fall under the zero rated supplies umbrella. So for example, if you were to have 600K of standard rated supplies and 600K of zero rated supplies, your total taxable supplies will hit 1.2 million and you will cross the 1 million threshold. Thus, you will have to register for GST. On the flip side, we have non-taxable supplies. So we have exempt supplies and out-of-scope supplies. So exempt supplies are a list of items in which IRAS has provided guidance in which GST is not applicable. So a very common example would be financial services. For example, when the bank charges you bank fee, they do not charge you GST. Same when they issue you a loan, they do not charge you GST likewise. And we will also have out-of-scope supplies. So the best example of out-of-scope supplies would be in an instance, for example, when you have your factory in Vietnam and your customer is in China. So your goods are essentially moving straight from Vietnam to China and never enter into Singapore. Hence, it's out of Singapore and also considered to be out of scope supplies. So even if you have 2 million, 3 million of out of scope supplies, you will not need to register for GST, as all these are considered to be non-taxable supplies. There are also certain cases where a company can register to be GST exempted. So two criteria will have to be met. The first being that your zero rated supplies over your total taxable supplies has to exceed 90%. So you are mostly selling to clients out of Singapore. The second criteria would be that the company is in net refundable position with IRAS, where it means that your input tax is greater than your output tax. Thus, IRAS is actually paying you money. So if both of these criteria are met, a company can register to be exempted from GST. So to quickly summarize, here's the general rule of thumb. If you are selling locally and your taxable supply has crossed the 1 million threshold, you will have to charge GST. However, if you are selling overseas, you will not need to charge GST. So this also asks the question of whether you should or should not register for GST. So it's clearly mandatory once your business has reached the 1 million mark or you forecast to reach it in the future. However, you also have the option to register voluntarily. So in this case, for voluntary registrations, IRAS may request for a deposit to be placed with them, and you will also need to be registered minimally for 2 years. The benefits of being a GST registered company would be increased visibility and credibility to your business, because you will have to do reporting to both ECRA and IRAS. So that means that your books will definitely have to be in order. And also you have the ability to claim input tax on your purchases from GST registered suppliers as well. However, it is also important to take note of the additional responsibilities of being GST registered. So there will be more administrative work for sure. So you will have to charge your customers GST where applicable. So you got your standard rated supplies and your zero rated supplies. You will have to ensure that your tax invoices are updated to show your GST registration number. You have to display your prices clearly with GST. And you will also have to file your GST on a regular basis and make the payment to IRAS. So in general, you can either choose to pay to file GST on a monthly or quarterly basis, and you have to make sure that you make the payment in time as well. You will also have to keep proper business and accounting records. So IRAS recommends that business actually keeps business records of up to 5 years, and anytime there's any changes in your GST registration status, you have to notify IRAS immediately as well. And with that, I've come to the end of our presentation. So from our team at Osome, we'd like to thank you all for coming in today. And we have a QR code here if you would like to reach us for more details. So feel free to scan it. And you also may reach out to us via the email that's on the screen as well. And we have a very special promotion rate for you guys as well. So feel free to reach us at any point in time. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks, Glenn, and thanks, Imran. So I think we had like a bit of a connection issue earlier on, but I think the presentation itself was really insightful, and I myself learned a lot also. And also, I think Jess has popped the link in the chat box where you actually can view the referral link as well as what are the ongoing promotions that Osome has. And yeah, so I think with that, I'll pass the time to Jess from Amazon Global Selling, who will take us through the basics of selling on Amazon.com. Right.
All right, can everyone see my screen? Let me just double check if everything's okay to go. All right, so thanks everyone for attending today. Right, my presentation is about some important parts about selling on Amazon.com, right, and hence the name of the presentation, right, basics of selling on Amazon.com. Okay, so I believe that you're in this webinar because you like to understand a little bit more about selling on Amazon, right, in the US, how to begin, what are some tools you can use to kickstart your business on Amazon, right? But before that, let me just share with you briefly about why sell on Amazon.com and also a recent exciting update, which is the new seller incentive program. All right, so if you already have an e-commerce business and you want to expand to the US market, or you simply just want to start big by tapping into a large pool of buyers, then Amazon.com is for you, right? By signing up for an Amazon.com account, you're jumping right into the birthplace of Amazon, which is the US, right? Where you have the largest number of Prime members and also the most complete logistics systems here. Right, so as for our new sellers incentive program, right, we have a lot of benefits for you if you're a new seller who launched their first buyable ASIN in the US on January 1st, 2022 or later. Right, so if you want to understand more about the new sellers incentive program, you can just scan this QR code or use this link provided to understand more. Right, some of the more exciting ones I see here are, for example, the FBA benefits. Right, for example, you get $200 off fulfillment fees. Right, there are some eligibility criteria involved. Right, so if you want to read more about it, please do scan the QR code or just save it for your own use later. Right, so I'll now move into the main bulk of my presentation. Okay, now that you're interested to start selling on Amazon.com, right, you may wonder, what can you sell on Amazon, right? So here's a few category ideas to inspire you, right? So to find these categories, right, you can just Google them up. Okay, so let's say you Googled Amazon bestsellers, right, and you click into the first Amazon.com result, right? You should see a page like this, right, which basically covers the 5 categories that you see earlier. Right, so you can just click into the department that you are interested to see the results for, and the items will show accordingly. Right, so this exercise actually helps you to understand the market and consumer behavior, so they can just assess the potential of a certain product. Right, you can also click on different top-selling products and read the customer reviews. Right, so you should be thinking of questions such as, are there ways in which you can innovate and improve the current product to create more value for your customers? Right, if yes, you know you are off to a good start. Right? Alternatively, if you wish to leave your product research and scouting to a third party, right, you can navigate the software and service partners page on Seller Central. Right, to navigate this page, simply go to your partner network tab, right, on Seller Central, then click into Find Apps and Services. Right, then under the Launch category, click into Product Research and Scouting. Okay, you see a lot of third-party vendors listed, right, where you can filter based on marketplace supported, program supported, pricing, etc. Right, so when you're planning your product selections, you should also take note that certain categories may require approval in order for you to start selling on Amazon.com marketplace. Right, so if your products fall under this red category here, you will need to request for approval when you're listing your products. For example, let's say you're selling watches, right? Then in this case, you will require approval. Okay, so at this point, as we're talking about selecting your product and also getting your products ready, I would like to talk a little bit more about product barcodes because Amazon systems are barcode driven, right? So assuming that if you choose to fulfill orders via FBA, which is fulfillment by Amazon, right, each unit that you send to a fulfillment center requires a barcode so that it can be tracked throughout the fulfillment process, right? So products that do not use a manufacturer barcode for tracking, right, you will require an Amazon barcode or what we call an FN SKU, right, you start with X0. Right, if you want to register for a manufacturer barcode for your product, right, it is recommended that you get them directly from GS1, and the logo is here, right, and not from other third parties selling UPC licenses, right. This is to ensure that your product information is reflected accurately in the GS1 database. Right, so some of you may ask, you know, what if I'm selling a private label or handmade product, right? So I don't have a manufacturer code, right? In this case, you can apply for a GST exemption through the link here, right? And just a note of caution while you're doing your listing, right? In order for your GST exemption to work, you must enter the exact same category and brand you were approved for, right? If you use different uppercase, lowercase, and add additional spaces or punctuation, right? The system will not be able to recognize your exemption, right? And you will not be able to list your products successfully. And also, the exemption is for brand and category, right? So if you can add as many products as you want under the same brand and category without applying for the exemption again, right, for the same one. All right, so before you can start selling on the US marketplace, you would first need to register for an account with Amazon.com, right? So I would like to just quickly start off with the account registration process, and understand there's quite a few to go, right? So you first start off with registering your selling account with Amazon, and here you'll fill in your details such as business and contact address, your identity number, phone number, chargeable credit card, etc., right? So after that, you need to go through SIV, right? This is what we call seller identification verification. And here you need to submit the correct documents to verify your identity, right? You need to submit your identity documents such as your passport or NRIC for Singaporeans, and your bank account statement or credit card statement, right? Concurrently, you'll be triggered for these two other processes. The first one is the postcard OTP, right, where Amazon will send you this postcard to your address that's registered, and you just have to key in your OTP later. As for the IPV video call, on the registration interface itself, you can just schedule a video call with an Amazon personnel, right, based on your availability. So once you pass all of these stages, you finally get access to Seller Central, and here you will need to update all the action items triggered, such as tax interview, deposit method, etc., right? If not, you will not be able to start selling, right? And the last one here, in some circumstances, you may be triggered to go through SPR, or what we call Seller Performance Review, for additional checks, right? And here you will need to submit your utility bill. Okay, I want everyone here to please read through the account registration guide before and during registration, because it does give you the step-by-step information for you to complete the registration successfully. And also, because every step in the registration process is irreversible, right, you should make sure that whatever information you key in and every step should be correct and accurate, right? So the best way to prevent any wrong key-ins is to make sure that you have your ID and your bank account statement right next to you. So if you need to key in any information, is just right there, right? If you happen to key in the wrong information, you will have to restart your registration with a different email address, and that's not what we want to do. All right, so as my time is limited today, I will only go through the SIV process. Right, so here, the first one, you have to submit a government issued ID, right? So we currently accept two types of documents, right? The first one is passport, the second one is driver license. And for some countries, we do accept identity card. For example, if you're from Singapore, we do accept NRIC, right? So for passport, make sure that your passport includes the bearer signature. So understand, for Singapore, you have two separate pages, right? So you have to scan both parts into one document. As for your driver's license, make sure that both front and back are scanned. If you're uploading your NRIC, make sure that you select the drop down and the driver's license, right? I know it's not very intuitive, but we are trying to work on the interface right now. Right, so some best practices, make sure that you should scan it in color, meaning whatever you see in real life, it should look exactly the same on the scanned document, right? No black and white copies. And also make sure that it's not cropped, right? You shouldn't take a photo and you crop the edges, nothing like that. Yeah. All right, so make sure to upload your bank account statement as well, or what we call credit card statement or P&L statement. It can be other third-party cross-border payments, like for example, if you're WorldFirst or if you have OFX, right? So you can use that as well, right? Things to take note are, for example, make sure that the name of company and point of contact mentioned on the statement should match the business name or point of contact name provided during the registration, right? And also, you can censor all the account number and monetary amounts, but the rest of the documents should be visible. Okay, make sure that the document must be issued within the past 180 days. Okay, and also, if your document is not in one of these following languages, like for example, if you're from Indonesia and your document is in Bahasa, right? Please make sure to translate it and notarize it as well. So if you need a notarization provider, we do have a list that you can refer to, and it is in the account registration guide. Okay, so we do accept e-payments, but it must be unaltered. So for example, if you receive it in 5 pages, please submit all 5 pages, yeah? And do not crop the document. All right, so I've already covered the do's and don'ts. This is just a summary. Right. So if you are still facing problems with your registration currently, and if you want to talk to a person to help you solve this issue, please fill up this form here or scan this QR code. Alternatively, you can just look out for emails that say something like, I am Jess, an onboarding specialist, right? And you just click into this one-to-one booking form, and we will schedule a call with you at our soonest abilities. All right. So understand that Jingxuan has covered briefly about FBA in Singapore. So I'll keep my part to focus more on the US side. Right. So what is FBA? Okay, basically you send your products to Amazon's fulfillment centers, right, where Amazon will pick, pack, ship, and provide customer service for those products at a nominal fee. Okay, there are a lot of benefits that comes with using FBA. For example, if you use FBA, you'll be eligible for the Prime badge, right? Millions of our customers in US are Prime members and they like to purchase items with the Prime logo because they'll be eligible for free shipping and they also receive their items within 1 or 2 days. All right, so I have some sellers asking me, right, if it's a must to use FBA. The answer is no, right? However, it is undeniable that there's a lot of benefits from using FBA. For example, with this service, there's 24/7 customer service for your buyers, right? You can be on vacation or you can get busy preparing your products or optimizing your ads, while Amazon helps you to answer all your inquiries and even help to manage your customer returns, right? So you think about having FBA as equivalent to having a logistic and customer service headcount, right? Helping to manage all your operational concerns. Okay, so I have some sellers asking me about the FBA fees as well. So here are some of the more common ones. So for example, here we have the FBA fulfillment fees, which is a per unit fees charged. So basically you can think of it as the fee that's charged when they are sent from the fulfillment centers to your customer's house, right? So that the last mile delivery. The next one is what we call the monthly inventory storage fees, and this is calculated based on the daily average volume, right, in cubic feet, right, not in weight. Yeah, and it is measured by the unit size when properly packaged. Right, we also have another one here, what we call FBA disposal order fees. Right, so basically what it means is that, for example, you don't want to sell a product anymore and you want FBA to help you to dispose of it. Yeah, we can do it at a nominal fee, right? Obviously, because it involves some manpower lah. Right, the last one is what we call the long-term storage fees. So for example, if your item has been stored in our fulfillment centers for more than 1 year, right, then we will be charging you a long-term storage fees on top of these monthly inventory storage fees. Right? So at this point, you may wonder if it's more profitable for you to fulfill on your own or use FBA, right? You can use this FBA revenue calculator through your Seller Central. I provided the link and QR code on the screen. Right? Feel free to save them for your own exploring after this webinar. Okay, so these screenshots I've shared here on the left are the new versions of the FBA revenue calculator, and you can calculate either by searching for your own product or you can just define your own product dimensions. Right. Don't worry if you lose this page. This webinar is recorded, and you can always refer to this section later in your free time. Okay, lastly, I want to cover briefly about the Amazon Brand Registry, or what we call ABR. Okay, you may wonder what's so great about registering your brand, right? Okay, so here are some statistics regarding brand owners selling on Amazon. So for example, 59% of Amazon buyers choose familiar brands when spending. Yeah, I'm sure this is relatable to all of us here too, right? Once we form a memory and habit of buying a particular brand, right, we buy products from the same brand over and over again. Okay, it's the same for Amazon customers in the US, right? To them, buying familiar brands mean that they don't need to take time and effort to understand different products available in the market, and this helps them to avoid the risk of landing on an unsatisfactory product. Okay, so here are some of the benefits of Amazon Brand Registry, right? So ABR can help you to build, grow, and protect your business, right? So under build, we see that there is this A+ content, which I'll explain in a bit, right? As well as stores builder, which is basically like building your own website on Amazon.com, right? Under grow, sponsored brands help customers to discover and engage with a brand as they research on Amazon through prominent and customizable cost per click ads, or what I call CPC ads. Yeah. Brand analytics help you to make informed and strategic decisions with aggregated search terms, demographics, and more powerful data. So under protect, right, we have transparency, which is a new item level tracing service that helps brand owners protect their brand and customers from counterfeit. Right, it allows brands to associate each unit they manufacture with a unique code. And lastly, we have brand registry, right, which helps to protect intellectual property rights and create an accurate and trusted experience for customers on Amazon. Right, it gives brand owners access to tools that enable them to better represent their brand and also find and report violations, like for example, counterfeit violations. All right, so what is A+ Content Manager, right? So imagine if you're a buyer and you scroll down to read through the product descriptions, then you see this, right? On a different store selling the same product, you see this, right? So without the A+ Content Manager, you are limited to 2,000 characters and you cannot add any imagery or graphics to the content, right? So essentially, with the A+ Content Manager, you're able to add images, large infographics like this, right, and descriptive text throughout, right? According to a study conducted by Amazon, the average conversion rate increase when utilizing A+ content description is about 5.6%. Okay, so let's say your current conversion without A+ Content Manager is around 10%, which is already quite good, right? Meaning, from 100 eyeballs to your page, 10 people will buy from you, right? But if you switch to the A+ Content Manager, right, your new conversion rate will be 15.6%, which means around 5 to 6 more people will buy from you, which is even better. Right? If you have a registered or pending trademark, you may start enrolling into the Amazon brand registry. So you can just sign in using your existing Seller Central credentials to ensure that your selling account is linked, and you'll be able to gain access to brand registry features and benefits quicker. So here's the link and QR code that will redirect you to the ABR webpage. All right, so thank you for listening, and now it's time for our Q&A.
Right. Thank you, Jess. So now I think we have dedicated some time to have a Q&A session with any of the panelists today. So if you have any questions regarding maybe what Osome has shared, you can also either pop them in the chat or come off mute. Or if you have any questions about selling on Amazon Singapore or Amazon.com, you can also let us know as well. Yeah, so maybe we'll give some time to allow the participants to maybe type their questions, if any, in the chat, and we can see if there's any for us to take.
Oh, okay, I think I see one from Jelena. So you're asking if we can have a replay, right? So we will be sending the recordings through email to you, right? So all registrants will get the recordings as well as the materials that we have covered today. So don't worry about it. You can just check your emails. Maybe by next Tuesday, you should be able to receive the email.
I think we have one question in the Q&A. Yeah, maybe Jess can.
Okay, so the question goes, do you have or can you provide information on Singapore tax GST obligations for global sellers who are looking to sell in Amazon.com or .sg, I think, because I think that the question goes Amazon.com.sg from overseas. Maybe this is a question for Osome. Okay, this is
Can you all hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So as mentioned earlier, so the general rule of thumb is that anytime we are selling goods into Singapore, so the goods enter into Singapore to Singapore customers, there will be GST that has to be charged on the goods that are being sold. So GST is usually a bit complicated. There's a few criteria to think about, but the general rule of thumb is always think about where your goods are from currently and where it's gonna go to. In general, if it lands in Singapore and reaches a Singapore customer, GST will most likely have to be paid as well.
All right, thank you. I think we have another question here, but I think this is for Jing Xuan. I tried to upload my products on Amazon Singapore. They asked for a selling application for a catalog authorization. How can I do it? Right, so for this case, right, maybe it's best if I can redirect you to the Amazon.sg mailbox, and there we will help to answer this question because it may be a bit technical and you might need some step-by-steps. So let me just share my screen very quickly.
Yeah, it's sharing.
Oh, okay. I can see my screen now. Hold on now.
Yeah. So yeah, I think like Jess mentioned, because I think this sounds like a more specific to the product you're selling and the category that you're trying to sell in. So it's best if you can drop us an email with all the relevant details that you have so that we can help you to kind of diagnose like what is the specific steps that you should take. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So this email, you can just drop us an email to this inbox.
Okay, we have another question here. Global sellers are required to register for GST in Singapore? Question mark. I think this is for Osome as well. Hello. I think Glenn, I think
Government
you're
has actually just released a scheme known as the overseas vendor.
hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Glenn,
Is it better now?
yeah. Yes. Can you repeat your answer? I think we didn't catch it.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So the Singapore government has actually started what is known as the Overseas Vendor Registration Scheme. So now, overseas vendor who actually wants to sell goods into Singapore, if they have to meet two criteria. The first being that they have a global turnover of 1 million. And if they sell goods to Singapore that's over 100,000, they will actually have to register to be GST registered as well. In that case, they will also need to charge their clients in Singapore GST.
All right. I hope that answers your question. Right. Thank you so much, Glenn. I think there's another question here that is somewhat similar to the previous one. It says, do I need to file income tax? We are selling on Amazon USA.
Hi, okay, I'll take the question because it's more on the corporate tax side. So if you're not incorporated in Singapore, right, and your major dealings are all overseas, you do not have to file your corporate income tax in Singapore. Yep.
Right. Thank you, Imran. Are there any more questions? Okay, I think we are good. Maybe we can give one last minute, right, for any last questions. If not, then we will probably end early, right, to give some time back to the audience. Okay, there's one more here. Hi, if we register through Amazon.sg and would like to sell globally, do we start over, or is there any button that will navigate from our existing Singapore Amazon? Or actually, I have a screen share. Maybe I can just quickly share that. If you have registered for an Amazon.sg account, you can also sell globally by just clicking to inventory here, then click into sell globally. Right, then you should see a page like this, right? And if you're trying to register into Americas, right, you can just click into begin verification in North Americas accordingly. Right, if you see something like this, it already means that you have an account in Americas. Yeah, so you can just navigate. For example, if you expand to Europe, you can do so as well. Yeah, so it should look something like this. If you want to create a Singapore account, if you are selling from .com. All right, so I hope that answers your question. There's another one here. Basically, any goods reach Singapore will need to be taxed. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, so currently, low value goods that are below $400 do not have to be taxed. However, the Singapore government has actually recently implemented a ruling stating that from 1st January 2023, low value goods will also have to be taxed. So for now, no, but in the future, pretty much everything, yes.
All right, thank you. Is there any more questions here? Okay, maybe one last minute, right? It's not always we have experts on tax, right? So it's good that we can take this opportunity to ask more questions, right? And also maybe you can just check the chat again. I'm going to send the chat here, right? So if you have any questions regarding how Osome can help you to start your e-commerce journey, you can just reach out to them via this link here. So I'm going to just share this very quickly to the entire audience. You can check this in the chat. Okay, there's another question here that says, if I registered brand in Singapore, should I create my brand registry in Singapore or US Amazon account? Okay, I think that's for us, right? So I think it depends on where you want to start selling, right? So if you want to start selling in .sg or .us.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add on to the question about the brand registry, right? So I think the bottom line is just ensure that your brand has a active registered trademark in the country that you wish to enroll in. Yeah, so it depends on like where you want to sell on in which marketplace and country as well.
Okay, I don't think we have any more questions.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
one
so
last count. It's 12 o'clock. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, then we will give the time back to all the panelists. Thank you also. And also thank you all of you who attended this webinar today. right? Just one last check on the questions. Okay, we don't have any more streaming in. Okay, maybe Jingxuan, you want to wrap up for today's webinar?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think, like we mentioned, we'll just wrap up today's session earlier. But if our registrants and participants have any questions, please feel free to either click the link in the chat to reach Osome, or you can actually scan the QR code and reach the Amazon team instead, depending on whatever questions that you have that we didn't have the time to answer. And yeah, so just want to give another big thank you to the Osome team for joining us today and taking the time out to actually share with us about tax and GST and everything. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us, and we will be sharing the resources as well as a recording of today's session. Right? Thank you. Have a great weekend.